Later this morning, Maryland Governor Wes Moore and Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg will announce the official reopening of the Port of Baltimore. Secretary Buttigieg joins us right now with the details. And Secretary, welcome. This is a very important day and one that we've been awaiting the last couple of months. We all watched in horror as the bridge came down just a few months ago. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about what the process has been and what it will mean to have that port back open.
Yeah, this is an extraordinary moment, and it reflects the work of literally more than 1,000 responders, coordination across so many different entities and agencies. Really an example of things working the way they should in the wake of a terrible disaster and tragedy. We all woke up to the shock of seeing what had happened, the bridge collapse, and then the question of what would happen next with tens of thousands of tons of metal in the Patapsco River, seeing how the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, the Coast Guard, and so many different departments quickly came together to address that, I think really is an extraordinary story. And most importantly of all, it means back to normal for so many port workers who are hardworking men and women. They've been through a lot in recent years. And while the port was not able to operate normally, many of them were out of work. This is a key port, especially when it comes to vehicle import and exports. It's actually America's #1 vehicle, port on the East Coast for that, as well as certain kinds of bulk goods, specialty goods. So good news for supply chains, but especially good news for the people and the workers of Baltimore to have that open, and to have it open less than 100 days after that shocking collision and the aftermath.
Yeah, the Port of Baltimore actually handled a record 1.1 million cargo ships last year. What will happen? There were a lot of things that had to be diverted. Is this going to be business back to as usual? Do you expect to see that same sort of pace pick up again?
I think so. Everyone who was using the port the day before that ship strike was using it for a reason, because it was the right answer for them from a competitive standpoint. We did see a lot of other ports step up, whether we're talking about the container side or facilities in Rhode Island and Georgia that are also specialized in vehicles. But we also saw scenarios where, because of the facilities at Baltimore that are uniquely there to finish and address some vehicles, they would come into a port of Rhode Island or Georgia or New York, New Jersey, and then still have to be brought to Baltimore to be finished. So obviously much more efficient for things to be the way that they were. We appreciate the way the other ports stepped up temporarily to adapt and address that disruption, but now are really looking to see things get back to the normal business and the normal growth that Baltimore was expecting and experiencing.
Secretary Buttigieg, you're about 3.5 years into your tenure as the Transportation Secretary. It's been a pretty tumultuous time for transportation. You could look at a freight trail derailing. You can look at Boeing and the airplane door plug that blew off midway through. You could look at the FAA outage that caused lots and lots of delays in 2023. You can look at the issues with Southwest Airlines, all the delays they had in 2022. I think if you look across the landscape right now, I just wonder, where do you think the biggest problems are? What do you think needs to be done when it comes to transportation and maybe some of the aging infrastructure we have there?
Yeah, we came through the door and immediately confronted the biggest, deepest, and most multifaceted set of disruptions to transportation since 9/11. It's almost dizzying to think about how much has changed from year one, where we had the supply chain issues driven by COVID. We had an airline sector where the biggest question wasn't on-time performance, it was the survival of the airlines themselves. Just a completely different and in many ways unprecedented set of issues. We tackled those issues, still living with some of the after effects of that, but at this point can confidently say that every area of transportation is better than we found it, and we know the work in front of us to make it better still. Whether we're talking about the performance of airlines, which right now we're on track to match last year, which is a decade-long low in cancellations, just a year after what happened before that, 2022, when we saw all of those disruptions and cancellations. We've seen a new high watermark of passenger protections for airline passengers and are now really entering a new framework when it comes to the level of safety protections that are going to maintain the extraordinary safety record of U.S. aviation. Our supply chains, really night and day in terms of the performance that you see compared to 2021. Although I will say this, some of the vulnerabilities that were exposed in 2021 are still with us. Concerned about capacity in our freight rail systems, something that needs more investment and needs more attention. But things like that and some of the other issues that we've seen, whether we're talking about sea, land, or air, also point to the other big thing that was on our agenda the moment we came through the doors, which was to get a historic infrastructure bill passed, something that previous administrations had talked about. Everybody knew we needed. Nobody could get it done. Now, not only is the bill done, but the money is actually moving. The projects are getting done. We're at 54,000 projects and counting, from a streetscape in a town somewhere that can be done in the summer to some of the biggest infrastructure projects of our lifetime.
Let's talk about some of the very specifics with some of the problems that have happened with Boeing and the door plug blowing out. The accusation was that the government took Boeing's word far too leniently and allowed them to do their own oversight. Where do you think Boeing stands today? How safe should we feel on Boeing planes? How strongly do you feel like there's a great product that's being made on the production lines right now?
Well, the FAA put Boeing under a microscope. In the words of the administrator, there's no going back to business as usual at Boeing. At the end of the day, the government, the FAA, sets a quality standard, and it is Boeing's responsibility to meet that standard. The administrator put him on a 90-day clock to come up with a comprehensive plan demonstrating how they were going to address some of these quality control issues. Those 90 days are up. They presented their plan. Now there's going to be an intensive phase of monitoring and evaluation to see how they're doing to meet that plan. And we're not going to let them increase production until they show that they have. And look, this is all the product of a level of extremely intense public and government set of expectations about aviation safety that helps to explain why, just in the time since we've got here, about 3 billion airline passengers have stepped onto a plane, and 0 of those 3 billion have lost their lives in a fatal airliner crash. Keeping that record up is not something that anybody takes for granted. We need to press to maintain that while also looking at other sectors that, frankly, need to move closer to that level of rigor and intensity in their safety culture. I'm looking at the freight railroads. In a couple of weeks, we're going to see NTSB's final report on East Palestine. There is no longer any excuse for Congress to be sitting on the Railway Safety Act. That needs to pass and add tools to our toolkit. And then automotive safety, where we lose in this country the equivalent of about as many people as can fit into a 737 every single day. We have finally seen the numbers start to go in the right direction, reversal in the rise of roadway deaths, 7 quarters in a row where that's gone down. But we're still talking about roughly 40,000 American lives lost. It's equivalent to gun violence, and in my opinion, completely preventable. And that's a major focus for our department.
Is automated driving the answer to that, or is it something else?
I think in the long run, the safety payoff of automated technologies when it comes to driving could be game-changing. But precisely for that reason, we need to be vigilant and intense about ensuring that those technologies develop safely. But it's not binary. It's not like one day all the cars drive themselves. There are things available right now. For example, we just completed work on a rule requiring automatic emergency braking. And those are connected to sensors that are really set to a standard that should be not just as good as a human driver, but better. And we'll be reaping those benefits in the years to come. So certainly we need to make sure that the technology meets its potential. The life-saving potential of that technology is truly extraordinary.